Good evening. Namaste everyone. Thank you so much, Aniket sir and Leaf Foundation for organizing this series. I'm happy to discuss the Nepalese landscapes on a larger level, which will be followed by Ms. Ruchi Bajracharya in detail. Nepal is a landlocked country nestled in the foothills of Himalayas. It is located in South Asia with China in the north and India in south, east, and west. The country can be divided into three main geographical regions: Himalayan region, hilly region, and the Tarai region. The highest point in the country is Mount Everest, 8,848 meter, while the lowest point is in the Tarai plains of Kechanakalan in Japa, 60 meter. Because of this vast difference in altitude, naturally Nepal consists of beautiful Himalayan ranges, serene hills, forests, ridges, valleys, lakes, wetlands, rivers, ponds, etc. It is recorded that Nepal has a total of 118 types of ecosystem, 75 vegetation and 35 types of forest. The mountains and wetlands or forest create a series of visual characters and trigger different experiences. These experiences always inspires us for the designs responding to the grandeurs of majestic mountains, amazing layers formed in the contours of hills, textures formed due to stacking of the sheets of natural rocks of caves, and the platforms created on the fields of Tarai plains. Just a quick look of Bundol Chaur Farping. A chaur in the middle of the dense forest inspires with its diversity and ecosystem along the series of vista created naturally. Dense forest open up to a meadow chaur, forming a series of experiences of prospect and refuge, which creates a sense of mystery. With these, of course, these landscapes for us is a complete book for ecological designs. The government of Nepal in 2016 has declared conservation program in 5 landscapes: Tarai Arc landscape for tiger conservation, Chiton Annapurna landscape as a river basin linking habitats at different altitudes, Kailash sacred landscape for its cultural attributes, sacred Himalayan landscapes for its cultural and ecological attributes. Kanchenjunga landscape is a transboundary landscape that includes habitats at altitudes ranging from lowland Tarai in Japa district to the high mountains of Kanchenjunga. Under these landscapes, altogether there are 12 national parks. The green corridors, forest covers, and the rivers and wetlands in these national parks are the home for different habitats. These national parks are in protected areas under landscape scale conservation, which contributes to transboundary conservation of biodiversity, which enables collaboration and coordinated effort in to fight poaching, illegal international trade, and conserving these in its natural form. Because of its wide ranges of physiographic division of the country, it is estimated that there are in total 6,000 rivers, including rivulets and tributaries, in Nepal. Historically, the civilization of most of the cities of Nepal started from the bank of the rivers. For example, Seti River of Pokhara city, Narayani River of Bharatpur city, Danda River of Bhairava city, Tinau River of Butol city, and Bagmati River of Kathmandu Valley. Bagmati River, which was once the origin of the civilization of Kathmandu Valley, is now acting as the urban void between the two municipalities of city. The river originally was the main resource of the people residing in Kathmandu. Many ecosystems are formed in the upper streams of the river. The river was also the main source of irrigation of upper agricultural lands and the daily needs of the people. There are many Hindus and Buddhist temples along the river and the ghats steps for different rituals for the people. The design language of these ghats consists of steps with larger pins, niche, balconies, platforms in different size, shape, and materials. Circular, rectangular, square platforms divide the steps into landings. These similar elements in different layers and levels with the edges of parties, small temples, creates a pattern of a visual character. These platforms, landings, and temples, parties with open pavilions on the edges create spaces for different activities. The culture of Nepal encompasses the various cultures belonging to the 125 distinct ethnic groups present in Nepal. It is expressed through music and dance, art and craft, folklore, languages and literature, philosophy and religion, festivals and celebrations, food and drinks. Most of these cultures of Nepal are directly and indirectly celebrated in open spaces or community spaces in different forms. Example, Dasai or Vijaya Dasami is one of the most significant and auspicious festivals of Nepal, celebrated predominantly by the Hindu, in which all ethnicities participate. It's a 15-day celebration starting from Ghatasthapana to Fulpati. During this period, all the people gather in open spaces, chow in villages and parks in town, sing bhajans, dance, play a swing called rotaping, etc. These spaces are in the nodes of villages and towns which open up to the vistas and views. Chhat. The rituals of Chhat are observed over 4 days. They include holy bathing, fasting, abstaining from drinking water called brata, standing in water, and offering prasad and arga for sun rising and setting sun. Some devotees also perform a prostration march as they head to the river banks. Devotees gather along the spaces of river, ponds, and other water bodies for the rituals. Riverside spaces are carved out traditionally, which doesn't disturb the riparian edges of the rivers and its ecology and allows those rituals. Dance and music. Different dances are performed by different ethnic groups of Nepal. The open spaces are shaped accordingly in proximity to community buildings for these activities. If we analyze the landscape character of these areas, the central circular field are ideal for those kind of musics and dance. Gentle slopes for the proper viewing angles form a visual character of the spaces with the community buildings on the edges and sitting spaces with trees backdrop. I, I cannot miss the Lumbini as a cultural landscape in Nepal. In 1970, the International Committee for Development of Lumbini initiated the preparation of master plan which was conceptualized by Kenjo Tange. The Kenjo Tange master plan was finalized and approved in 1978, which was a 3-mile area plan. It is based on geometric shapes and the notion of the path to enlightenment. The entrance is placed in the north in the new Lumbini village, from where the visitor enters the site to begin the journey from a location of worldly activities. Then the visitor proceeds to the monastic zone for knowledge and spiritual purification before reaching to the sacred garden for enlightenment. Landscapes here inspires us how the serene natural setting of those sacred gardens, ancient shrines, and the religious building blend together with the landscapes created. Above all mentioned ecological spaces, socio-cultural spaces have a certain hierarchy from residence level to larger level in rural and urban context. The hierarchy of open spaces in rural context starts with the PD, the semi-open spaces in the steps of each individual houses, which are used for different activities like festivals, gatherings, and drying foods, etc. Angan. Angan spaces in front of individual houses which act as shared spaces with close communities are used on different community gatherings and socio-cultural activities. Chautari in community level act as a shaded resting space while traveling and natural view deck. Urban context. Hierarchy of urban context starts with courtyards at residential level, semi-open spaces shared by immediate neighbors, to the streets as a shared spaces at community level. The chokes, open spaces with shading trees or building structured at a node of one or more streets, are the community level spaces. The Darbar squares have larger opening spaces shared as a celebration spaces for different festivals and jatras. City level parks as a green sink in urban areas act as a larger open spaces for the people in town. As I explained earlier, the nature of Nepalese landscapes, the patterns in them, and the culture of the people living here gives inspirations and become the base of the design. My design process is not a structured one, but a practical one where I get ideas from the surrounding nature, Nepalese landscapes, culture, people, on site demonstrations, and the local material. The meandering pathways of the hills of Nepal always triggers the journey with different vistas and the sense of mystery, which hints at the landscape design of this residence. The curved pathway along the green islands with small trees leading to the entry of the residence hides and reveals the view of the house as a person approaches nearer and nearer. Trees on the west buffer the residence from noise and submersion. The open lawn with a sitting space under a tree gathers the family members, creating a sense of togetherness. The courtyard space is the gathering space for the festivals like Dasai and Tihar, etc. Like the courtyard space in the ancient Nevari homes, which will be the connecting spaces in festivals. The boulders resembling the Nepalese riverine landscapes were collected from the site itself while foundation excavation, which triggered every one of us about the site history which once was a floodplain. The textures and the patterns evolve with the practical demonstration on site with local mentions and materials. This generates the ideas for different patterns, textures, their stability, local materials, and the workmanship. All this provides a clear picture of installation. And the public project gate design on Sunauli Beleya border in Vairava. The existing gate was in dilapidated condition and was a crowded space with hustle and bustle of people and the goods loaded with trucks in queue in custom. There was no separate pedestrian pathways and pause points for the people rushing to and fro with the luggages. So, starting with the questions in mind, like what imagery comes to mind while we and the people entering from the border think of Nepal, and the pride that we feel. We went on searching for answers. Yes, the Himalayas, the place where the heaven meets earth, its grandeur, Nepalese temple architecture, the interplay of mass and void of the temple, pedestrian reclaim with introduction of shaded seating spaces and a separate pedestrian pathways. These formed the overall design of the gate and its surrounding landscapes, and a right of way with separate entry points for the loaded heavy trucks, vehicles, and the pedestrians. The pedestrian entry is extended with seating spaces and a pausing space with their luggage while traveling. I was involved in another public project, street elevation in Paris Butol. Paris Butol, being the origin of Butol city, had its own street characters. Started with the questions what made those streets lively and happening in those time, finding answers, growing through the history, photographs, similar examples of the country. Again, those were the culture, the people, and the shared spaces by them, street character, and the elevations. The community spaces that diminished textures, materials, etc. So, creating different nodes for those gatherings, chautaris for shaded seatings, parties for resting house, common celebration chaur, and reclaiming the character with materials, shared spaces, and the facades which revives the old town. The riverfront design competition was held by Society of Nepalese Architects, which was located on Teku along the Vishnumati river side. As explained on the rivers system of Nepal, Vishnumati river is also one of the major river which meets Bagmati river. Vishnumati river holds history of cultural, social and agricultural activities being performed. Chaotic expansion of houses and ignorance of people has made the area suffer and are now out of green areas which once was prominent. Vishnumati river, being the monsoon fed river, tends to expand in monsoon season on heavy rainfalls. Keeping this in mind, the programs on the waterfront are designed in three different levels. Different community level programs are located in the upper level and the river ghats are located in the lower levels with cultural programs. The lower ghats are shaped following the cultural patterns that take place on the edges of the river. The design of edges, steps with plinth, landings create a space for different cultural activities and also provides an uninterrupted view of river at upper level. And the Nepalese river and landscapes with the layers of boulders and vegetation is a must go for riparian edges of the riverfront design. Thank you.
To talk about Nepalese landscape architecture. So my presentation today is going to focus on the components of Kathmandu Valley. I belong from Kathmandu, so it is very close to my heart how these components that I've been seeing since childhood were actually an essence of what Nepalese landscape architecture was. So we all know Nepal is known for its mountains, the way of life, individuals, and its rich history. Kathmandu, Bhaktapur, and Patan are main cities in Kathmandu Valley. The ancient temples and palace architecture of the valley are well known and quite impressive. These ancient temple complexes, housing systems, and city planning teach valuable lessons about landscape architecture. A similar landscape language of rural areas, the ideology of Kathmandu Valley also revolves around ecological and socio-cultural design. Kathmandu, Bhaktapur, and Patan Darbar Square, all traditional Nepalese architectural masterpieces, are also listed as World Heritage Sites. These were once Malla palaces. They are the result of centuries of optimization of material use, construction techniques, and climate considerations. The Malla rule, which lasted from the 10th century to 18th century, is the source of most notable architectural style. Looking at the architecture of Kathmandu Darbar Square, which is also called Hanuman Dhoka Darbar Square, is designed with intricate networking of courtyards. Technique for creating an open space with tightly woven mesh while simultaneously providing structural stability. These palace courtyards were used as formal courts, places of worship, and even as royal baths. According to a research by Pant and Funut published in 2004, The structure of the fabric of the town is also arranged by a series of huge and small courtyards, also called as nani or chok. The courtyards have social and cultural significance in addition to serving ecological function by providing adequate lighting and ventilation. These shared spaces, where the majority of local Newars live, serve as a social hub. Common sites include a chiba, which is a miniature stupa, people performing household chores, a place to gather, and even a place for children to play. These open spaces, stone paving also adds to the intricate underground water channels that control surface runoff. Walking the narrow streets and alleys of Kathmandu and the towns that surround it can appear quite chaotic and sometimes inconvenient for outsiders. The courtyards and squares connected by these narrow streets slowly but surely demonstrate, when looked at closely, that there is a logic in this connection. Since automobiles hadn't been invented then, the streets were built for just pedestrians. There's a raised platform known as falcha where locals interact, they sit and then they talk with their neighbors, and also travelers can rest before continuing their journey. The streets were made of brick and mortar and have stone edge with different patterns of brick paving. Additionally, there is a distinct drainage on both sides. These drainage carry the surface runoff, which is then collected in puku or pokhari, which are man-made ponds, for example, Rani Pokhari. These drainage systems, without affecting the street landscape, were quite functional and aesthetically pleasing as well. Rani Pokhari is a stunning ecological and architectural masterpiece that exemplifies the Malla era's meticulous craftsmanship. The pond was an engineering feat in addition to its beauty. To keep it full all year, a complex underground system of channels supplied it with water. It also managed the surrounding surface water during the monsoon, allowing runoff from farm market to enter the pond and slowly past farmland to rivulets. At that time, the region's water management system was shaped by numerous Rani Pokhari in various parts of Kathmandu Valley. Because Rani Pokhari replenished groundwater, it maintained the flow of nearby water sources like hittis and wells even during the dry season. A hitti, also known as Dhungedhara, is a Nepalese traditional stone spout with steps sunken structure. It is a stone waterway with intricate carvings that allows water to flow uninterrupted from underground water sources. Stone spouts are common sights in Kathmandu Valley. Many Nepalese still rely on the traditional hittis for daily water supply. Since 500 years ago, these have been a prominent landscape feature that reflect water features and also mark as fundamental water supply system. Rani Pokhari is connected to the open field Tudikhel by a linear plan. Tudikhel may be as old as the city itself, where indigenous traditions, festivals, legends, and superstitions are deeply ingrained in its culture. The term Tudikhel refers to open green plain land in Nepali. In the compact settlement of Kathmandu core city, this multifunctional open space has a great importance for public socially, culturally, and environmentally. Since ancient times, various communities have used this space for celebrations of festivals and activities, as well as for public assemblies and processions such as Rbajracharya, Losar, and even Mahashivratri. Apart from socio-cultural importance, this large public space also fulfills ecological purposes for groundwater recharge. Even during natural disasters, this area has been used as refuge area. The image shows the setting during 2015 earthquake. With the passage of time, a number of transformations occurred in Tudikhel, such as decrease in size, change in activity, and also in land use. The open space of actual Tudikhel has decreased over time to make it more diminished in size at present. Just like Tudikhel, Kathmandu's unique organic planning is an interwoven mesh of thoughtfully placed open spaces, such as Chaur, which is an open field such as Narayan Chaur and Sano Gaucharin; Chautari, a platform with large tree used as a gathering space or rest stops; Pati is a meeting place for social and religious gatherings and also a rest stop for travelers. Another important element is Dabali or public squares, a multifunctional market space for mass gathering, cultural processions such as Indrajatra, and also leisure activities. The square is generally connected by numerous streets and contain a place of worship. The largest religious street festival in Kathmandu, which is Indrajatra, is also deeply rooted to the traditional streets of the city. Mass dances of deities and demons, displays of chariots, and rituals in honor of god Indra all contribute to these festivities. The narrow streets and squares are connected in such a way that these chariots are pulled to different squares where devotees can visit. These squares still hold great significance in our community. During Malla rule, architecture and ecology were focused together to create indigenous social spaces. The rich architectural history during the Malla rule is still exemplary, and no other Nepali architectural style is able to replace or come to par. After the end of this historic era in 18th century, the Shahas ruled Nepal. During this period, new style of architecture was introduced to the country by Rana Prime Minister Janga Bahadur Rana, who was keen on modernizing the country after he was inspired by what he saw in European countries during his visit in 1850. This initiated development in Nepal in the field of science, technology, engineering, and water resources. Cousins of then Prime Minister Chandra Samsher Rana, Kishore and Kumar Narsingh Rana were the first Nepali to receive foreign engineering degree. They mastered neoclassical architectural design. Chandra Samsher's palace, Singha Darbar, was one of the first ever palace that adorned all neoclassical features, from column orders to pediments to even formal garden styles. Another notable build was Khandagar, a clock tower in 1920s. During Rana regime, many Western style palaces were designed and built, along with neoclassical style formal gardens. Inspired by French gardens, Keshar Mahal or Garden of Dreams is one of its examples. Exposure and Western influences had shaped the way architecture was perceived in main cities of the country. Many large scale institutions, government buildings, public spaces were developed. Some examples are Godavari Botanical Garden and the Central Zoo that were established in 1960s. These type of projects they brought a more ecological aspect in the more macro level of the city. Some prominent projects designed by foreign architects have also been valuable for contemporary Nepalese architecture. For example, Narayan Hiti Palace by Benjamin Polk in 1963, Taragaon Museum by Karl Prussia in 1974, involvement of Austrian architects for Bhaktapur Development Project. Many experiments and renditions of modern architecture were reflected in urban areas of the country with a number of growing architects. As the nation developed, architecture developed gradually, but awareness of landscape architecture remains a challenge. The importance and ideology imparted during Malla rule hasn't been implemented in present context. Most landscape designs have been done by architects and some were successful in adding significant positive impact. Mr. Bharat Sharma, who graduated from Harvard in 1979 with landscape architecture degree, was Nepal's first landscape architect. As a government official, he has been involved in numerous ecological restoration projects. These include, among others, landscape design for IOE campus and regional planning for Devghat area. Mr. Bharat Sharma is also an academician and has been teaching in various reputed architectural colleges. He states that majority of current design efforts are primarily cosmetic, with little regard to the environment. He strongly believes that we should apply what we can learn from the past. Our guiding principle ought to be aesthetically pleasing and socially as well as culturally appropriate. Holistic development. As a designer, I try to incorporate some of the traditional and vernacular ideologies in my work. For example, using stone spouts as a decorative element for pool's feature wall. One of my main objectives is to create spaces that will have a meaning to the user, an experiential space within that corner. Even if it's walking on footpath, use of various plant textures, materials, play with color to enhance these spaces. Functional spaces take center stage, nevertheless, aesthetics are equally important. Use of benches along a long pathway for elderly to rest or act as a meeting spot. This concept brings out the use of functionality as well as aesthetics in any space that we use. I try to draw inspiration from vernacular style, stay connected to the architectural roots of the city. One successful method for connecting roots of the city has been material selection with brick and stone combination. Vernacular design approach to landscape can and will revive the beauty of socio-cultural background of traditional settlements. Kathmandu Valley has very rich interconnectivity between existing landscape elements, but these are not maintained to its glory. Open spaces such as Tudi Khel, Rani Pokhari, Darbar Squares, Bagmati Riverine Edge, Ghats, the streetscapes are all assets of Nepalese landscape architecture. River corridors, if designed with ecological sensitivity, will become the glory of Kathmandu. And also just at the moment, the parts of the riverine edge have been revitalized, such as the Bagmati Action Plan, and also some cleaning campaigns have been done to at the moment, the parts of riverine edges have been revitalized, such as implementing Bagmati Action Plan 2009-2014 and also by initiating cleaning campaigns. Concepts such as placemaking will, in some way, help raise awareness of the pressing need to transform Kathmandu's dreary areas into vibrant ones. We as designers should aim towards enhancing the public realm to cultivate an authentic sense of place, create beauty, and to impart civic pride, connect neighborhoods, support community health and safety, also to catalyze economic development and encourage environment sustainability.